Okay.
No, of course not.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming here on time. Hopefully we'll have some more folks come in soon. This morning we have a special guest speaker. We have Alex Kasperpe from WYMT, who's going to be sharing with you about how she got her position at the news station and some tips and advice for how to do good production work, what it's like to work for a news station and the types of production work you're going to be doing, shooting your own material, writing your own voiceover, and doing your own editing work. So we're very happy to have her here today to share. And so she's going to present some things, and then you're more than welcome to ask her any questions you might have. She's only got till 8:45 to be here, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
All right, you all look about as much awake as I am right now, and words are hard. But anyways, I recently just graduated from WKU in May, so still pretty new to it, but I've started my first job. I've been with YMT for about 2 months now. Would you all rather me start with my college life or my work life? It's your all's choice. College life. Okay, at Western we actually have our own newscast. We have 2 days where it's news and then a 30-minute sportscast on Thursdays. I actually was more involved in the sportscast. Sports is kind of my thing, but I also made myself involved in news because you will learn sports jobs are hard to come by, so make sure you have a little bit of both. So I did all those. I didn't really want to keep myself just on one track, so while I was there, I actually did a little bit of everything from anchoring to reporting. I always was out shooting packages, TD, producing, anything you name it except audio. That machine freaked me out. But so it's always nice to have yourself have a lot of stuff behind your back because finding a job is not that easy. But we actually had, I don't know if y'all have heard about Western's program. I think you all are just starting your program kind of, right? Yeah, Caleb, no, I know him, so he kind of told me about the program. But Western's program is a little more, it's probably a little more dominant just because it's been around for so long. So they really put us in there. You know, we shot packages. Our final broadcasting class, I think I had 6 packages due that semester. I had to anchor 2 newscasts and produce a newscast just for class assignments. That's not counting what we did in class and had to write papers and stuff. So can you all tell me, do any of you all really want to go into news? Production, any of that? Okay, well, just in case you all end up there, because this business, I've seen people who only wanted to go out and be a photog and they end up on camera, or you'd be surprised what you see. First off, I got my job at YMT. I started October 6th, so I'm still fairly new. I'm actually in the bureau, so I'm not in the station. We have like this little trailer that we go to and we edit and we send our stuff in, so it's kind of weird. But I'll just tell you a day in my life. I actually go to work. I'll be there at 9 today. I have to find stories. You'll find that finding your own stories, really it doesn't matter what position you hold. If you're in the news business and you hear a story, like people always want to hear that. I've had producers, weathermen, like our technical directors and stuff like that, they'll come up with story ideas too. It's not always required from productions in, but it's always a plus. So if you ever hear of a story, it's always a good thing to be able to tell the station. That's what I'm struggling with now. I just moved to Pikeville like 2 months ago, so right now I'm still struggling on finding stories because I don't have those connections. But that's like the main thing that I'm required to do. You know, I need to have story ideas so I can go out in the community and shoot them. Every day I cover at least 1 to 2 stories, sometimes 3 depending on timing and stuff. I'm required to shoot. I shoot my own package, write my own package, and edit my own package every day. And then I will also make a VOSOT from that and a VO, which I also shoot, edit, and write myself.
Explain what those things are, what a VOSOT and VO.
Okay, a VO is just your typical, usually about 30-second story where you have video that you just put over it. So it's not just the anchor's face. And then a VOSOT, the difference is it's just a VO except for you have like a sound bite from one person in the middle of it. So you usually have your story in the beginning, the sound bite, then you'll have something at the end to just kind of close the story together. And then do you all know what a package is? That's more of your longer stories. When I was in college, it was about $1.30. That's where they wanted them. If it's a really good story, then your producers, well, here at YMT, they'll say you can have a 1:30. Most of the time, they want it from a minute to a 1:15. They like them shorter. I know some other news stations that like shorter packages also. But those, it's just more, you have more sound bites. You actually voice it, so the anchor's not reading the story. You voice the package, and then you'll have video as well. And most of the time, you'll shoot a stand-up or a bridge. Stand-up, well, at Western, we called a stand-up. It was at the end where you'd be like, and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. In Pike County, I'm Alex Casper Peak, WYMT Mountain News. But sometimes you'll do bridges, which I typically do bridges because I never know where I really want my stand-up to go in the story because I haven't written it yet. So you just kind of have to think in your head what you want the story to be about and say something about it and hope that you can fit it into your package. A bridge is technically you just say a sentence and then you don't have an out, so you can really put it anywhere. Just not the beginning, because you usually don't want to put yourself in the beginning of a story because then you're making the story about you and it's not about you. So those are a little more time consuming, but it's not that bad. What do you all edit with? Premiere? Okay. Right now, I think we might be the only station in the world, but we're still tape to tape. I don't know if you all have even seen those devices. They're pretty dated. We hope to be tapeless within a year. I don't know if that'll happen, but let's hope so. But if you do go into production or editing, I've seen, I interned at WBKO in Bowling Green while I was in school my last semester. They actually had people who edited for them, like they hired editors for the producers and stuff. So the reporters were still editing their packages and things, but stuff that comes from like CNN or wherever, CBS, you know, because you'll get video from other places. They have people who just edit that. I work for Gray. Each news station has its own company. You have Raycom, Gray, stuff like that. Most of the Gray stations I've seen work with Edius. I worked with Avid and Premiere in college. My favorite out of the three is probably Edius, if you all have ever seen it. Have any of you all? They're all pretty much the same. There's different things about each one. So as long as you understand the basic concept of editing, then you'll be able to edit anything. Trust me. I went to tape from Avid, so it's possible. Is there anything else you all want me to like cover? I know you all aren't really news people.
How long does it take you to finish? You said you do about 2 to 3 stories, right? Did you cover it? Does it take you like the whole day, or do you pretty much like finish in a couple hours and then you have the rest of the day to relax?
It depends. Like yesterday, I went and covered a story in Prestonsburg, came back, and then I had another story at 1 o'clock in Pikeville. So those 2 stories, by the time I got done editing, it was like 5:30, and then I had to put everything on the web. So I didn't get out until 6. But days like Sunday, there wasn't really anything going on, so I went to the Pikeville Police Department and got an interview with the lieutenant there about the drug roundup they just had, because they just arrested 8 people, 8 drug dealers. So like days like that, like I literally had my interviews and my package shot by I think 10:30, but my producer wasn't in until noon, so I had to, he always, like, we have to send him our scripts, and then he will, he has to approve them and send them back to us. So I could have probably been done that day at noon, but by the time he sent me my script back, it was already 2 o'clock. So I think that day I got out around 3:30 or 4. So it just depends. Some days I'll work like 10-hour days, and some days I'll work like 5-hour days. It's news. You never know. And I was technically on call the rest of the day, because if something happened and someone got shot, then I was off to that and I had to cover it. So.
How long is each interview that you shoot? What kind of questions do you ask?
It really depends. If I'm just shooting for a VOSOT, then I'll typically just ask 1 to 2 questions, because I know I'm only going to be able to use 1 SOT. So I go in trying to like kind of realize like which angle I want to take the story, so I can ask that question, get the sound bite I want, and then leave. If I'm shooting for a package and it's something I really don't know about, I really try to like get everything on camera. So I'll sit there and probably talk to them for like 5 to 10 minutes just because I know I won't use all of that sound. But when I go back to write the story, I'm really bad at like, I'll just like mix numbers up or something. So I like to have it like on camera so I can like go back, see what they said, and then write the story from that. So.
What is a loci? What other type of
We've already explained that. You missed that part.
Sorry, I was late.
Anyone else? What kind of work do you all want to go into? I know production, but do you all have an idea? Do you want to end up like doing production at a news station? There's lots of jobs there. Most of them are some of them are actually part-time, and you'll actually move up from there, I think. I interviewed at WYMT-TV for a production job before I got this, just to kind of get my foot in the door. And they said that most of their production people were part-time, and then once they got full-time, they were pretty much there for life. Do you all want to work with, like, I think one girl I graduated with is working production for the Discovery Channel right now. So what kind of stuff would you all like to do? What's your favorite part? Shooting, editing?
You know, I think the answer is we don't know yet.
You don't know?
Shooting, cinematography.
So maybe a photog?
Maybe.
Do you know what that is?
Take picture.
Kind of, yeah. I know smaller markets, it's all me. Like, I do everything by myself. I shoot, I edit, I write. Once you get into bigger markets, like this is a starting job. I started this, my contract's 2 years. After my 2 years is up, I'm probably, more than likely, 100% positive I'm gone. I'll be moving on to a different station. But once you get into your bigger markets, I think Louisville is 58, somewhere around there. They have photogs, so, which is kind of like, so if you just like the shooting aspect of it, they actually have photogs. You go out and you follow your reporter around. So basically, I wouldn't be shooting my video. You would be shooting the video. So that could be interesting too, just at the camera part. So you can always keep that in mind. Like if you don't want to report and you don't want to be on screen, you can still be a photog and shoot. Actually, one of my professors at Western, he is the main professor now. He's awesome, but he was a photog his whole life. And he ended up in Nashville and worked there for several years. And he still actually freelances as a photog, and I think he went to the CMAs last year and did stuff like that and just shot. So there's opportunities in news for just photogs too. They call it photogs. It's basically just like a camera person.
What are some common problems that you run into every day shooting your packages, whether it be interview subjects that don't turn out so well? What are some common issues you run into that you have to be on your feet to address?
In college, my biggest problem would be finding interviews that don't want to talk. It's kind of been easier here because you can say like, I'm from YMT, so you either get automatically shot down, I don't want to interview you, or they're so excited because they're going to be on TV. So here it's been a little easier. When I was in college, trying to get people to talk how you want it was really hard. I remember one time I was shooting a softball package, so I had the head coach, and I thought she would be a decent interview because most of your coaches are. And we had her on set and we were live for our sports show. We were like, so, you know, you've had a good year, how's it going? And she was like, it's good. And then like, she was just quiet. So you kind of learn how to talk to people. I think I've gotten more comfortable at talking to people and asking questions and like pulling answers out of them. Also, let's see, on election day, that's a very interesting day. I double tapped on my first interview, which essentially, I thought I hit record, but I was already recording. So it had me putting the mic on him and then taking the mic off. So when I got back, I didn't realize I did it. That was really interesting. My producer wasn't really happy with me, but I'm still new, so I kind of got away with it. So always make sure you're recording. I think dark video is one of my issues because since I'm in the bureau and we're tape to tape, like if I have video that's anywhat dim, like it doesn't even have to necessarily be dark, but after I put it onto another tape and then microwave it to the bureau, it gets like 10 times darker, so I keep getting in trouble for having dark video when it's not dark on my end, but after the microwave, it is. So I have to kind of like pay attention to that. And timing. Right now, the bureau, I didn't have a computer, so I didn't have, what do we use? ENPS. Y'all probably haven't seen that, but it's basically where we put all our scripts and everything in. So it actually times it out. It gives you a rough estimate of how long your story is going to be. My first package, I didn't have EMPS, so I kind of just typed it out, and I was like, don't forget to time it. Well, it got sent to our news director, and he didn't time it out, so that package ended up being, I think, like 2:15, and they were so mad at me. But I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't know the time. Now I've kind of learned that, but it's just stuff you kind of get used to.
What exactly is your job position?
I'm a reporter.
Just a reporter.
A bureau reporter, if you want to say that.
What did you graduate in, and like, what's your degree?
It's in broadcasting with a concentration in news. And then my minor was athletic coaching.
Back when I was, for a time, I almost took a job working as a photog, actually. And at the time when I was looking for positions, basically the idea was that if you didn't have a college education, you could still get one of these positions as long as you knew what you were doing. Has that atmosphere changed a little bit? I mean, well, I know it's competitive, so I guess my question is, if somebody's really, really good, is that what's really important? I mean, a degree is nice, but if as long as you're a good shooter, you can get a job, or a good reporter. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one thing they always told us in college, like, grades were important because when I was in school, you know, it was really stressful at times when I was working, out shooting a package a week, anchoring 1 to 2 nights a week, and then the third night a week I would be at the show, you know, producing or doing something else. So it kind of does, for some people, school work took a back burner. I ended up walking out with a decent GPA. I think it was like 3.15. But the main thing they stressed to us was you want a good GPA, but if you have a news director who has 2 people, one person has a 4.0, graduated with the same degree as you, and you have a 3.0, same degree, but you have experience and you have footage to show them that you did stuff, then you're going to get the job. So it's based on work experience. I know when I was looking for jobs, a lot of them said your smaller markets that you can actually get into, they said preferred. They want a 4-year degree, but it's not necessarily required. I think right now with technology and stuff, if you have a degree, it's going to help you a lot, but if you go up against someone with better grades than you in the same degree, but if you have the experience and you're a better shooter and you know what you're talking about, then you're going to get the job over someone who has a 4.0 and was involved in all kinds of extracurricular activities. So, but finding a job, you all may be too young to realize this now. Once you kind of get your foot in the door and you know what you're doing and you graduate, don't freak out. You'll find a job, and you will go through the phases. You might have a job set up. Production jobs are a little easier to come by. Took me a little while to find a job. I think I applied to around 40 jobs before I got a call back. So it'll happen. And I had a lot of experience, you know. I've worked with our student newscast, which isn't really an actual newscast, but that's the kind of stuff they like to see, which I think you all have opportunities around here. Definitely try to find an internship. I don't know if it's required. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's in production or in the field you want, I would definitely recommend it. You have stations around here. YMT's in Hazard. We also have a bureau in Pikeville. I think you have WYMT TV and EKB. They may be our competitors, but I'm just saying, like, internships are really important, and it helps you build contacts, and contacts are really important in this field. So just keep that in mind. If you remember anything from today, internships and patience, because it'll come, but it's not one of those jobs that you can walk out of college and call someone and say, I have a degree now, I want this job. It's hard work. You have to have a passion for it. I love what I do. There are days when I absolutely go home and I'm like, because everything didn't go how you wanted it to. But there are days I go home and I'm just like, wow, I told like 2 stories today and it didn't even feel like work and I had the time of my life. So just keep that in mind. You all are young now, but you'll come to terms and figure out what you want to do in the next couple of years. And once you graduate, just be prepared. They told us at Western the average person looking for a job in news or production, I think, is out of school for up to 9 months once they graduate. I'm not trying to crush any dreams. I'm just being realistic right now. That's what they told us, and it took me 5 months to find a job after school. So.
Do you had no connections, you just had a resume, you just sent them out?
I had some BKO in Bowling Green. I could have contacted them. I applied there, but I didn't really try. You just kind of learn the stations, and that wasn't somewhere I wanted to start my career. The news director isn't really hands-on.
What did you do for 5 months while you were just searching?
Worked at Subway and this other ATA college as a front desk person in Louisville. So I just went home and kind of had some jobs. And then in my mind, you know, after a few months, you kind of always have a backup plan, which I didn't want to go through with my backup plan, so I just kept applying. Actually, there are 4 other WKU graduates at WYMT right now that I went to school with, so I kind of sent my resume, and actually the reason I got my job is I sent Neil, who's the general manager, a request on LinkedIn. I don't know if you all know that. It's a professional social networking thing. So I actually sent him a request, and from that, he didn't even see my resume because they get so many emails. Let me tell you, I get about 200 emails a day, solid. So he didn't even see my email with my resume. He actually did see my friend request from LinkedIn, and that's when he just wrote me a message, and he was like, hey, we have these jobs open at WYMT. Would you be interested, blah, blah, blah. He asked the other people about me, and that's when they told me that Neil had asked about me since I already knew 4 people down there. So actually, I got my job technically based off LinkedIn, so keep that in mind too.
What about social media presence? How do they need to think about social media use in terms of job hunting? What do they need to be careful not to do? And what, you know, maybe once they have a position, especially like yours, where social media presence is a good thing if used properly, what do they tell you at the station? What have you decided what works best for you?
It is actually in my contract, social media. You know, if I put something bad on social media, they can fire me for it with no problems. They give you a work account. I have a work Twitter and a work Facebook. As some reporters have their personal pages open to the public and stuff. I don't put anything bad on my personal pages, but for sake of wanting some privacy, my Facebook page I've kept completely, it's my first name and my middle name, which if you don't know me, you're not going to be able to spell that anyway, so you can't find me. And then same with my Twitter account. So there's nothing bad if someone were to find it. You know, it's not going to be that big deal. It might say, I'm so tired today or something like that, but it's not necessarily something that I want the public to know. But then I have my work Twitter where, you know, I'll tweet out like, hey, I did this story today, it'll be on the 6th, or, you know, when I go out and shoot football games, then I'll kind of just tweet out the score and stuff like that. So it's really good. I will tell you, you could tweet something right now or put something on Facebook, anything like that right now, and say you get a job and 10 years down the road, it's like something bad that you put on and they find it, then they can fire you for that right then because you made the company look bad. So even if it was something I wrote in high school and it was really bad and for some reason it was made public and it made the company look bad, they can fire me for it. So just keep that in mind when you're tweeting or doing anything. One of the main things I think workers look for is like bashing jobs. So like say over the summer, like when I worked at Subway, and I've worked at Subway forever, you know, I made sure like even if I was having a bad day, like I knew I was not going to spend the rest of my life there. But I made sure to never tweet out like, oh my God, I hate this place is so horrible. Because like other workplaces look at that, you know, even though you didn't plan on spending your life there, you worked there, you were a part of that company, you were a face of that company, and you were trash talking it. So how do they know you're not going to turn around and do it to the other company? So keep that in mind. I don't post any pictures of me drinking alcohol, having alcohol, stuff like that. It's not really that picky, but you just really want to watch. Like my friends, I don't really do anything that would necessarily be inappropriate, but I always have everything like blocked. Some of my friends like to put not so relevant stuff on Facebook or anything. It's not necessarily bad, but it's just stuff that the public doesn't need to see. Like they'll tag me in like invitations to their kids' birthday parties and stuff like that. So I just like kind of keep it off my timeline. Not necessarily because it's bad and it reflects bad on me, but from there, there are some people on there that I'm like, I'm not really associated with them, but I'd be tagged in a post with them, and they're not necessarily the kind of person that I would want to be related to, like put together with, so I just kind of keep it off my social media. So it's really important, and it's any job these days. So keep in mind, what you tweet now can affect you down the road. Do y'all have any other questions? I didn't scare you all away, did I?
Can you explain the tape-to-tape editing process?
Okay, it's like a flashback to the 90s. Essentially, do you all record on P2 cards or SD cards?
They shoot on SD cards, and right now I dump their footage for them.
Oh,
For the most part.
y'all are pretty lucky. In college, we shot on mini DV tapes. We still shoot on mini DV. Actually, I think they're smaller. I don't know. In tape to tape, you all don't really know what capturing is, I guess. But tape to tape, basically, we shoot on tapes, and then you have two machines. One's your record, and one's your play. And essentially, it's like these two little things, and you just go back and forth. It's kind of like editing. You set your in points, you set your out points. But it's tape to tape, so sometimes it doesn't work and your tapes start jumping on you. But it's pretty much like that. I don't have the luxury of adding dissolves. I can't time lapse anything. So I've kind of run into issues with that because, you know, there was a story I did a story on daylight savings time, and I really wanted a time lapse where I took the clock back an hour to speed it up, and I couldn't do that because I was on tape to tape. So I kind of have to think about stuff visually too that I can actually edit with, because let me tell you, you never realize how much you love Edius, Avid, all that until you're back to tape to tape.
Any questions?
What made you want to go to news?
Well, my middle school, I'm from Louisville, they actually had a communications program, which I had no clue what it was at the time. I just didn't want to go to my home school, so I applied for it. And it ended up being news and stuff like that. So that's when I first realized what it was and actually loved it. The rest of my life, the only thing I've ever wanted to do was be a reporter or teacher. And I didn't really want to be a teacher because I wanted to get out, meet new people, move around, and experience the world. So reporting's just always been my passion. I love telling people stories. I'm super nosy, so it gives me an excuse to go and ask all the questions that I want without people yelling at me. My dad always tells me I'm way too nosy, and now I can actually say, I'm a reporter, it's my job. But it started in middle school, and it just kind of went from there. And it's really been the only thing I've known and the only thing I've wanted to do.
How well prepared did your college education get you for your job? And what would you wish you'd done more of in college, maybe?
I feel like Western prepared me a lot. We are one of, I think, the top 5 schools in the nation for broadcasting. Sorry, not trying to down your all's program, but you all will get there. But I'm just proud of my school. I made sure I was really involved in news and sports and everything, so I kind of got the feel. I do wish that I would have been more involved in news earlier. I didn't start really getting involved in news until the last year and a half I was in school because I was so negative, like, no, I'm going into sports, I don't want to do news. And finally it hit me, I need to get involved in news. So I wish I would have done that sooner, because when it came down to it, I had a ton of sports packages and sports footage that I could put on my reel. But news-wise, I had like 3 packages and a few anchoring because everything was sports. So I just wish I would have gotten more involved with that. Just put forth the effort and get involved. That's the only thing I recommend. Don't be that student that just goes to class, gets the grades, and leaves, because this isn't one of those careers where you can really go to class and learn. I think my final semester I had 1 final because we didn't really have tests in broadcasting because everything was like stuff you've done and projects you've worked on. So I would just recommend getting out of the class and learning, you know. I don't know if you all have camera equipment available to you all, but if you want to be a photog, like, yeah, you might have a project like go shoot a VO or shoot this. If you find yourself, you have a day where you don't have anything to do, go rent a camera, go find something to shoot and kind of go out and shoot on your own and edit it, and then ask one of your teachers or your classmates, like, what do you think? Like, involve yourself. If you can find any way to get the experience, like, I would just do it. And I kind of did that. I wish I was more involved in news, and I could have shot a lot more packages than I did, but I feel like I'm pretty, I know what I need to know right now. There's some issues with language. They call things one thing and I call it the other, so I'm still getting used to that. But I feel like I'm well prepared, but as I said, I literally spent probably 10 to 12 hours a day on campus doing broadcasting stuff, so I made sure that I was really involved.